Thank you. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the honor of being able to participate with this panel, and I appreciate my colleagues agreeing to let me speak. And I first want to thank all those members of the armed services who are here for their service to their country. It's an enormous sacrifice. You're not in it for the money, that's for sure, and you're in it for your service to our country, and for that, on behalf of my constituents, I want to thank you for your service, especially at this time while we're at war. You never know when you serve, when you'll be serving, whether peacetime or wartime, or where you'll be serving, and whether you'll be in a place where you might be called upon to put your life at risk. And all of us want to say thank you for your service to our country, and to say thank you to your families as well for the sacrifice they make on behalf of our country. And it is really in that regard that I wanted to ask all of our panel what they think of the opportunity for us to get treatment for, and really for our soldiers, by helping support our family members, because really the family is our first line of defense in helping those returning servicemen and women when coming back. And we found with the Veterans Committee, the benefits all go to the veteran, but it might be good if we kind of broaden the definition of beneficiary to include the spouse and the kids in terms of reimbursement for services, because they're suffering from secondary post-traumatic stress disorder when they see their family member overseas and in harm's way, and of course they're away from their family member for so long. That's a stressor. But when their family member comes home, would you not agree that if it were up to us, it'd be good to get them ready to know how to identify and be ready for and support their loved one, so that they can help them reacclimate to family life? And don't you think we need to be kind of helping to reimburse for whatever services that may be needed for those family members? And could we start with you, General Corelli?
Well, sir, the Military Family Life Counselors, I think, has been a huge improvement in the last few years to provide that kind of a service and care for families down to that battalion level. They're working inside the battalion. But I'm very proud of the fact that all family programs that we have put so much into these last years have all been put into the base budget, and everything from child care to all the services available to families are there and available throughout the deployment and once soldiers come back home. So I really think the emphasis that's been placed on this has been emphasis well placed, and is having a huge impact on the United States Army.
If I could follow up, I know my previous colleague, Representative Kaufman, and Carol Shea Porter both asked about both how to screen soldiers before they come in to make sure that they're adequately prepared for the stresses of combat and military life, and then how to best treat soldiers who might be suffering from substance abuse disorders and the like. I've introduced, along with Walter Jones, the Support Act, supporting uniformed personnel by providing oversight and relevant treatment support, and in short, and that is to oversee basically all of the substance abuse and treatment programs that are out there within DOD, to assess what are working and what aren't, and bring some coordination and see to it that we're using the best practices in our treatment efforts. And in regards to making sure our servicemen and women can be prepared for any situation, I wish we didn't have to have the stigma, because when I was first elected to Congress, I was asked to go down to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center, and there our elite Green Berets have available to them psychiatrists 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you might ask, why would the elite of the elite have psychiatrists available to them? Well, it was believed by the commanders that it made them better at what they do to have a clear head and a healthy state of mind when they were called into combat duty. Now, if that was the thinking for our elite forces, why isn't it the thinking with the rest of our forces, if they're now being called into all kinds of dangerous situations, to have a healthy state of mind? Why do we look at this as a weakness? Why don't we look at this as proactive, as my colleague, Representative Kaufman, said, and think of this as a strengthening tool rather than as a reactionary tool to only treat people who may be looking as though they're falling apart? We look at this as strengthening. They can better be resilient, they can better make decisions under combat and stressful situations, and they can be better soldiers in the process. What would all of you like to say about that?
We have mental health specialists that deploy with our services, with our units, with our carrier strike groups. So it's viewed as an asset that helps to sustain the force. So the capability is there no matter what happens, under what conditions, to help servicemen, regardless of their rank or their rate or gender or background, whatever help that they need. And so we see it as the embedded concept works at sea, and it helps sustain the force.
What troubles me is that, with the Marines having just in 2006 put the suicide prevention program in place, I mean, this is many years after the war started, and then the funding for suicide prevention's remained relatively stagnant in spite of the fact that suicide has gone up. Am I right, or did I not get the testimony correct?
Sir, the funding is not an issue. We've never had an issue with funding, both from the perspective of if we ever asked for it, we can get it. Quite honestly, the services are more than willing to realign programs to get the money to do it. So funding is not an issue. Honestly, I think this has been an evolutionary process. Prior to stepping across the border in March of 2003, we had a military that hadn't been to combat since the Gulf War, for all intents and purposes. So we spent probably the first 2 or 3 years almost not in denial, but this effort of combat stress, the issue of what is this doing to our force, because quite honestly, I think everybody thought, well, this war is going to be over. We'll be able to come back and we'll reset and we're going to be okay. We're coming at this, from my perspective, probably a little bit late. Within the last 3 years, I would say, certainly in my service, the last 3 years, been huge efforts put towards this thing. So I'll tell you that there is not enough mental health folks right now. What you've described with the Special Forces is exactly what we'd like to have happen. We've got 54 mental health folks, 24 mental health folks in Afghanistan with our 10,600 Marines right now. We want more. We want to get them there. In a perfect world, you would want to have as many of those kinds of folks as you possibly could get and hire down with those units for the very reason you've talked about. Quite frankly, they're not there.